People don't usually associate the word intimidating with someone quiet, thoughtful, or gentle. In fact, when most think of the INFJ personality, they picture someone soft-spoken, kind, and introverted. And while that can be true, it's only part of the story. Because underneath that calm and quiet presence is something many people feel, but can't quite explain. INFJs carry a kind of intensity that doesn't need volume or aggression. They don't use threats. They don't need to dominate. But they carry a presence that often makes people second-guess themselves. Some back away without knowing why. Others feel deeply drawn in and then slightly unsettled. It's not about fear. It's about energy. This form of intimidation isn't loud. It's psychological. It happens in silence, in the eyes, in the way an INFJ listens without reacting. They don't play mind games. But their mind is sharp. They don't show off their intelligence, but they see through things quickly. This kind of insight can feel like pressure to people who aren't ready to be seen. What makes it more intense is that INFJs don't try to be intimidating. In fact, many of them want to make others feel safe. But that doesn't stop people from sensing something different. It's the feeling that this person knows more than they're saying. That they've already sized you up. That they're waiting to see who you really are. This video explores the signs that show how INFJs become psychologically intimidating without even trying. It's not about being feared. It's about being felt. And once you understand this, you may realize just how much power you've been carrying all along. Sign number 1, your gaze and silence hold weight. Some people fill space with their words. INFJs fill space with their presence. They don't need to talk to make people feel something. Sometimes it's the way they look at you. Sometimes it's the way they don't speak. The silence becomes heavy, but not in a loud or dramatic way. It just holds weight. This can be confusing for people who expect reactions, fast responses, or surface-level chatter. INFJs don't give that. They take their time. They watch. They listen. And when they do speak, it's often thoughtful and direct. That combination, quiet and depth, creates pressure. Not because they're trying to cause it, but because most people aren't used to being seen that way. Eye contact is one of the first ways this shows up. INFJs have a gaze that isn't easily shaken. It's steady, searching, and full of questions that never get spoken out loud. When they look at someone, it's not just looking, it's reading, feeling, measuring. Most people can sense that. They feel exposed, even if the INFJ says nothing. Then comes the silence. When everyone else is filling the room with noise, the INFJ stays quiet. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they're thinking or observing. That silence makes people uncomfortable. It causes them to wonder what the INFJ is thinking, what they're holding back. And often, it makes people reveal more than they plan to. What's strange is that the INFJ often isn't trying to make anyone uncomfortable. But their ability to stay still while others scramble can feel intimidating. Especially in conflict, INFJs rarely raise their voice. They remain calm. They ask questions. They stay focused. And that control over themselves and the moment makes people pause. It's not just about staying quiet. It's about what that quiet holds. For the INFJ, stillness is an emptiness. It's full of meaning. It's full of analysis. It's full of energy that others can feel, but rarely understand. And in a world that runs on reaction, this kind of presence becomes a force. That's why INFJs don't need to act tough. Their silence does it for them. Their gaze does it for them. And most of the time, they don't even know it's happening. Sign number 2, you sense more than you let on. INFJs are often described as intuitive. But that word doesn't fully capture what's really going on. It's not just a feeling. It's a deep awareness. an ability to read people beneath the surface. INFJs don't just hear what someone says, they hear what they're avoiding. They don't just notice behavior, they notice intention. This ability to sense people can make others nervous, especially when they realize the INFJ sees more than they expected. Most people are used to wearing masks. They get through life by hiding parts of themselves. But INFJs don't fall for the act. Even if they don't say anything, they already know something's off. This quiet awareness makes people feel watched, even when the INFJ is being kind. Because deep down, they know they can't hide. And when someone knows they can't hide, they either lean in with trust or pull away in discomfort. INFJs usually don't confront people directly, but they ask questions that hit the right spots. They say things that sound simple but carry deep insight. They notice what's not being said. And when that awareness comes through, it can be shocking to the other person. That's part of the intimidation. The INFJ doesn't play games, but they understand them. They don't lie, but they recognize lies quickly. They don't expose people for fun, but they see through them without trying. That kind of quiet power makes people feel unsteady, like they're being X-rayed without consent. What makes it even more powerful is that INFJs don't need to prove they're right. They just know. And they're usually right more often than not. This calm confidence in what they sense gives them an edge. Others may argue, deny, or deflect, but the INFJ already knows the truth, and they're not moved by words alone. This ability to sense what's hidden, combined with emotional intelligence, creates a form of psychological strength. The INFJ can tell when someone is manipulating, insecure, lying, or afraid, and they don't flinch. They see it, they understand it, and they decide how to respond. That level of control and insight is rare, and often intimidating to people who rely on surface charm or emotional games. Sign number 3. You speak only when it truly matters. NFJs are not known for filling the air with small talk. They usually stay quiet unless they feel there's a reason to speak. And when they do speak, people tend to stop and listen. Not because the INFJ is loud or demanding, but because their words hit different. There's a sense that what they're saying matters, and that they've thought about it deeply. This habit of staying quiet until something important needs to be said makes others pay attention. In groups or conversations, INFJs often observe more than they contribute. While others jump in quickly, they hold back. They wait. They study the flow of what's happening. And when they finally step in, they often cut straight to the heart of the issue. That kind of timing is powerful. Most people are used to others jumping into conversations with opinions, jokes, or stories. But INFJs don't speak to impress. They speak to reveal. Their voice comes with weight because it's not overused. They're not talking just to talk. They're talking to shift the room. What makes this intimidating is the precision behind it. INFJs choose words carefully. They don't ramble. They don't bluff. And they usually say just enough to make a point, no more, no less. That clarity can be disarming. It can make others rethink what they just said, or feel suddenly exposed, even if the INFJ didn't mean it that way. It's not about being right all the time. It's about the effect their voice has. People don't always know how to respond, especially if they're used to controlling the conversation. INFJs don't interrupt. They don't argue. But when they finally speak, they leave no room for confusion. This controlled use of language is part of their psychological power. It signals that they're not here to impress. They're here to observe, reflect, and speak truth when it's needed. And when someone carries that kind of energy, others sense it. They may not say it out loud, but they adjust. They tread more carefully. They listen more closely. INFJs don't seek to control conversations, but they often end up guiding them anyway. Just by knowing when to stay silent, and when to speak in a way that cuts through everything else. Sign number 4. You remain unshaken under pressure. One of the clearest signs that someone is psychologically strong is how they react when things get tense. While many people get louder, faster, or more reactive, INFJs tend to do the opposite. They slow down. They breathe. They hold steady. And in a world that often runs on panic and performance, this calm is powerful. People expect reactions. They expect a raised voice, a shift in body language, a sign of discomfort. But INFJs don't give them that. Even when they're feeling pressure inside, they know how to stay grounded on the outside. They might go quiet. They might step back. But they don't lose control. This kind of emotional regulation doesn't come from shutting down. It comes from depth. INFJs process feelings quickly, and they're used to holding a lot inside. So when others start breaking down, they often become the steady one in the room. They absorb, observe, and hold space without making it about them. That ability to stay composed under stress can be intimidating. It makes others feel exposed, especially if they're used to gaining control through emotional outbursts. The INFJ doesn't rise to bait. They don't get pulled into drama. They keep their energy clean. And in doing so, they unsettle people who rely on emotional chaos to get their way. In conflict, this becomes even more intense. The INFJ doesn't escalate. They ask questions. They speak clearly. They stay focused. And even if they're hurt or angry, they won't show it in ways others expect. That kind of restraint can feel like strength, or like a mirror that reflects someone else's instability. It's not about being cold. INFJs care deeply, but they have learned that staying calm gives them clarity. It helps them see what's really going on. And it protects their energy in situations that would drain most people completely. This inner control is one of the reasons INFJs can be seen as intimidating. They're not playing power games. But they're not losing power either. They're just staying centered, and in doing that, they often become the most grounded person in the room. Sign number 5. You judge less, observe more. INFJs are slow to judge. They don't jump to conclusions or label people quickly. Instead, they observe. They watch patterns. They listen longer. And while this makes them seem warm or open, it also creates a strange effect. Others feel seen, even when nothing is said. Most people are used to quick feedback. They expect reactions, praise, criticism, or some sign of agreement. But INFJs don't always give that. They take their time. And that pause creates space where people start to wonder what the INFJ is thinking. This can make people feel nervous, especially if they're hiding something. Because even without saying a word, the INFJ's eyes are on the truth. They're picking up signals, noticing tension, watching what people are not saying. And the fact that they're not reacting makes people feel even more exposed. This ability to observe without judgment gives INFJs an edge. It puts them in control of the moment. Others reveal themselves more quickly, hoping to be understood or validated. But the INFJ doesn't rush. They wait. And by the time they do respond, they've already seen the full picture. People who rely on charm or performance often feel off balance around INFJs, because INFJs don't reward surface behavior. They're not impressed by loud confidence or shallow cleverness. They see beyond it, and that seeing becomes a kind of pressure. The INFJ doesn't have to say anything cruel or sharp. Just being present, just paying attention, is enough to make people start second-guessing themselves. And that kind of silent psychological edge is hard to match. Sign number 6. You hold depth. Others sense but can't reach. There's something about an INFJ that feels deep, even if no one can explain exactly what it is. It's not about being mysterious on purpose. It's just how they are. INFJs carry layers of thought, emotion, memory, and insight that rarely make it to the surface. And people feel that, even when nothing is said. This quiet depth can be fascinating, but it can also be unsettling. People sense there's more going on behind the INFJ's calm expression. They sense that this person has seen things, felt things, maybe even understood things that others never will. And that makes some people nervous. The truth is, INFJs rarely show their full self. They might share ideas. They might show kindness. But the deeper layers, the raw emotion, the private beliefs, the spiritual experiences, the intense visions of how life could be, they keep those hidden. Not because they're afraid, but because they know most people wouldn't understand. This emotional and psychological depth becomes a quiet force. People don't know what's in there, but they know it's real. They feel it in the way the INFJ listens, in the way they speak with care, in the way they seem to hold space for things others avoid. And for some, that depth becomes intimidating. Not because the INFJ is doing anything wrong, but because being around someone that's self-aware, that inwardly complex, can stir up insecurity in others. It reminds them of how shallow their own self-understanding might be. It brings up questions they haven't asked themselves yet. INFJs don't carry this depth for power. It's just who they are. But the effect is real. People feel like they're standing near a well they can't see the bottom of. They lean in, hoping to get closer, but they also pull back, afraid of what they might find. That combination of presence, calm, and hidden truth creates a psychological weight. And even if no one can explain it, they remember it. They remember how the INFJ made them feel. And they often walk away changed. The INFJ personality is often seen as quiet, soft, or reserved. But those who take a closer look begin to see something else entirely. A strength that doesn't shout. A gaze that doesn't flinch. A mind that observes more than it reveals. A heart that holds truth even when no one else sees it. This isn't the kind of power that demands attention. It's the kind that shifts the energy in a room without saying a word. It's psychological presence. It's emotional insight. And it's something that comes from years of inner work, quiet reflection, and deep observation. If you've ever felt like people react to you in strange ways, pulling away, going quiet, becoming defensive, you're not imagining it. You may be intimidating in ways you've never intended. Not because you're harsh, but because you see too much. You know too much. And you carry yourself with a kind of emotional clarity most people don't understand. Own that. You don't need to change it. You don't need to soften your presence to make others comfortable. Being psychologically strong doesn't make you unkind. It makes you real. And in a world full of masks and noise, being real is more powerful than anything else. So stay steady. Stay deep. And remember, just by being who you are, you're already showing others what true presence looks like.